Listen well, my children, to a story that will teach you never to judge a book by its cover. A story about a proud woman who was forced to marry a poor man, only to discover that destiny had other plans. Her name was Lena. She was 24 years old, beautiful, and came from a respected family. Her father was a wealthy merchant. Her mother wore fine clothes. Lena had been raised to expect the best in life. She dreamed of marrying a rich man, living in a big house, and being envied by everyone. But fate had different plans. One terrible day, her father's business collapsed. He lost everything. The debts piled up like mountains. Creditors came knocking, demanding their money. Her father had nothing left to give. Nothing except one thing: his daughter. The chief creditor was a harsh man named Baco. He looked at Lena with cold eyes and said, "Your father owes me a fortune. I will forgive the debt if she marries my laborer, Cato." Lena's mouth fell open in horror. "A laborer? You want me to marry a poor worker?" "Yes," Baco said with a cruel smile. "Or your father goes to prison." And so, on a hot afternoon, Lena stood before the village, dressed in a simple cloth, marrying a man she had never met. A man with dirt under his nails and worn-out clothes. Her family turned their faces away in shame. The wedding ceremony was short and cold. No music. No dancing. No celebration. Just a few witnesses and the pressing weight of shame hanging in the air like thick smoke. As Lena walked through the village beside Cato toward his small hut, people came out to watch. They stood in doorways and peeked through windows. Then the whisper started. "Look at the proud Lena now," one woman said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Yesterday she was too good for the chief's son. Today she marries a laborer." Another woman laughed. "Her mother used to walk with her nose in the air. Where is her pride now?" Young girls giggled behind their hands. Old men shook their heads. Children pointed and stared. The entire village was enjoying the fall of the proud merchant's daughter. Lena's face burned with shame. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She walked with her head up, even though her heart was breaking into 1,000 pieces. Beside her, Cato walked silently. He did not try to comfort her. He did not speak. He simply walked, his face calm and unreadable. When they finally reached his small hut at the edge of the village, Lena stopped and looked at it. One room. A thatched roof. Mud walls. This was her new home. This was her new life. "I will never forgive this fate," she whispered bitterly to herself. Never. Inside the hut, Lena sat on a wooden stool in the corner as far from Cato as possible. She refused to look at him. She refused to speak. In her mind, this marriage was a prison sentence and he was her jailer. Cato moved quietly around the small space, lighting a lamp, arranging a sleeping mat. He seemed unbothered by her silence. He did not try to force conversation. He simply went about his business as if this were any other evening. But Lena watched him from the corner of her eye. There was something strange about him. Something she could not quite name. Most laborers she had seen were loud and rough. They laughed too much, drank palm wine, and spoke without thinking. But Cato was different. He moved with a quiet grace. His hands, though worn from work, were steady and careful. When he spoke briefly to ask if she needed water, his voice was soft but clear. Educated even. And his eyes. When she finally dared to look directly at him, she saw something that shocked her. His eyes were not the eyes of a poor laborer. They were deep, intelligent, and held secrets. They were the eyes of someone who had seen much, experienced much, and carried burdens she could not understand. "Who are you really?" she almost asked. But pride sealed her lips. She turned away, determined not to care. Determined not to wonder. But the question remained, burning in her mind like an ember refusing to die. Night fell quickly. The sounds of the village faded into quiet. Crickets sang outside. A dog barked in the distance. Inside the hut, tension hung thick in the air. Lena sat rigid on the stool, her heart pounding. She did not know what to expect from this wedding night. Would he force himself on her? Would he demand things she was not ready to give? She braced herself for the worst, her body tense like a bowstring. Cato finished preparing the sleeping area. He laid out 2 mats, one on each side of the small room. Then he stood and looked at her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "You must be tired," he said finally. "You should rest." Lena blinked, surprised. "That is all you have to say? What else would you like me to say?" His voice was gentle, without anger or demand. She did not know how to answer. This was not what she expected. She watched as he walked to the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, suddenly afraid of being alone in this strange place. "I am going to lock the door," he replied calmly. so you will feel safe. He turned the wooden latch gently, securing the entrance. Then he walked to his mat on the far side of the room and sat down, his back to her. Sleep, Lena, he said quietly. Tomorrow will be a long day. Lena lay on her mat, but sleep would not come. Her mind raced with confusion. Why was he being kind? What was he planning? She stared at the ceiling, listening to his breathing in the darkness. Hours passed. The night grew deeper. Then, thinking she was asleep, Cato stood up slowly. Lena watched through half-closed eyes, her heart beating faster. He walked to a corner of the hut where a small wooden chest sat covered with an old cloth. He knelt beside it and carefully opened it. The hinges creaked softly. Lena's breath caught in her throat. What was in that chest? Cato reached inside and pulled out something that made Lena's eyes widen in shock. It was a piece of cloth, but not just any cloth. Even in the dim lamplight, she could see it was made of fine material. Royal purple. Embroidered with gold thread. He held it for a moment, running his fingers over the fabric as if remembering something painful. Then he reached into the chest again and pulled out something else. A ring. But not a simple ring. It was heavy, ornate, carved with symbols Lena recognized. Symbols of authority. Symbols of power. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it would wake him. This was impossible. Laborers did not own such things. Laborers could not afford cloth worth more than a year's wages. Who was this man? What was he hiding? Cato carefully returned the items to the chest and closed it. He sat there for a long moment, his head bowed. Then he returned to his mat and lay down. And Lena lay awake until dawn, her mind spinning with questions she could not answer. The next morning, Lena could not stay silent any longer. As Cato prepared to leave for work, she stood and blocked his path. I saw what you have hidden in that chest, she said, her voice trembling. That cloth. That ring. Those are not things a laborer owns. Tell me the truth. Who are you? Cato's face remained calm, but something flickered in his eyes. He looked at her for a long moment as if deciding whether to trust her. Then he sighed deeply. Sit down, he said. I will tell you what you need to know. But first you must swear an oath. What I tell you must never leave this room. Not to your family. Not to your friends. Not to anyone. If you break this oath, both our lives will be in danger. Lena's blood ran cold. Danger? What are you talking about? Swear first, he insisted. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. I swear. Cato sat across from her. My name is not just Cato. I was born Cato Mensa, son of Governor Mensa, advisor to the king. I grew up in the royal court. I was educated by the finest teachers. I was being prepared to serve the kingdom. Lena's mouth fell open. You are nobility? I was, he corrected. Until betrayal destroyed everything. His voice grew bitter. Someone I trusted, someone close to the throne, accused me of treason. False witnesses were paid. Evidence was fabricated. I was stripped of my title and sentenced to exile or death. How did you escape? Lena whispered. A loyal friend helped me disappear. I took on this identity as a laborer to survive. To hide. To live. Cato's eyes grew distant as he continued his story. Lena sat frozen, listening to every word. It happened 3 years ago, he said quietly. There was a man named Duma, the king's chief treasurer. He was greedy and ambitious. He wanted more power, more control. But I discovered his schemes. I found proof that he was stealing from the royal treasury, manipulating trade agreements for personal gain. Cato's jaw tightened. I was young and foolish. I thought honesty and evidence would be enough. I took my findings directly to the king. But I did not know that Duma had already poisoned the king's mind against me. He had been planting seeds of doubt for months, making me look suspicious. What happened? Lena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The night before I was to present my case, Duma struck first. He accused me of the very crimes he had committed. He said I was the one stealing from the treasury. He said I was plotting to overthrow the king. And he had witnesses. All of them lying, all of them paid. But their testimonies matched perfectly. Cato's hands clenched into fists. The king believed him. I was arrested that very night. They were going to execute me at dawn. But my friend, a guard named Juma, helped me escape. He gave me these clothes, this identity, and told me to run. And the chest? The royal cloth. Lena asked. Reminders, Cato said softly. Of who I was. Of what was taken from me. Of what I must one day reclaim. But not yet. Duma still has power. His allies still rule. If he discovers I am alive, he will finish what he started. As the first light of dawn broke through the small window, Lena sat in stunned silence. Her mind struggled to process everything Cato had told her. The man she had been forced to marry was not a poor laborer. He was nobility in hiding, a victim of betrayal, living in constant fear of discovery. Suddenly a sound outside made them both freeze. Footsteps. Heavy boots on the dusty path. Voices. Official-sounding voices. Cato's face went pale. He moved quickly to the window and peeked through a crack in the wooden shutters. His body went rigid. "What is it?" Lena whispered, fear rising in her throat. "Guards," he breathed. "Royal guards. From the capital." Lena's heart began to pound. "Are they looking for you?" "I do not know. But we must be careful. Very careful." He turned to her, his eyes intense. "Remember your oath. No matter what happens, you know nothing. I'm just Cato the laborer. Your husband. Nothing more." The footsteps came closer. Then a loud knock rattled the door. "Open up. Official business." Lena and Cato looked at each other. Everything hung in that moment. Discovery could mean death. But ignoring the guards would be even more suspicious. Cato took a deep breath, straightened his worn shirt and walked to the door. He adopted the posture of a simple laborer, shoulders slightly hunched, head slightly bowed. The transformation was instant and complete. He opened the door. "Yes, masters? How can this humble worker serve you?" The guards looked him up and down with barely concealed contempt. Behind Cato, Lena held her breath, praying they would not see through the disguise. The lead guard was a tall man with a thick beard and cold eyes. He looked past Cato into the small hut, his gaze sweeping over Lena before returning to Cato. "We are searching for someone," the guard said. "A fugitive from the capital. A traitor who escaped justice 3 years ago. We have reason to believe he may be hiding in this region." Cato's face remained blank, showing no recognition, no fear. Just the simple confusion of an ignorant laborer. "A traitor, master? Here in our poor village? I have seen no strangers. Only the same faces I see every day." The guard studied him suspiciously. "What is your name?" "Cato, master. Just Cato. I work in the fields for Master Baco." "And her?" The guard pointed at Lena. "My wife, master. We married just yesterday." Cato's voice carried the right mixture of pride and humility. The guard grunted. "If you see anyone suspicious, you report it immediately. There is a reward. 10 gold pieces for information leading to the capture of the traitor Cato Mensa." Lena's breath caught at the mention of the name, but she quickly turned it into a cough. The guard glanced at her briefly, then back at Cato. "You understand?" the guard demanded. "Yes, master. 10 gold pieces. I will watch carefully." The guards left, their boots crunching on the gravel path. Cato closed the door slowly and leaned against it, his calm facade finally cracking. His hands were shaking. "They are still looking," he whispered. "After 3 years they are still hunting me." Lena stood, her mind reeling. "Why? Why not just let you go? You are one man." "Because Duma cannot risk me returning to expose his crimes. As long as I live, I am a threat to his power." Cato walked to the window and stared out at the village. "I could end this. I could reveal myself, demand justice, fight for my name." He turned to look at Lena. "But it would be suicide. Duma controls the king's ear. He has allies everywhere. I would be dead within a day." "Then what will you do?" Lena asked. "What I have been doing," Cato said quietly. "I will wait. I will survive. And I will hope that one day, the truth will find its way to light." He looked at her intently. "But now you understand the danger. This is why I must remain hidden. This is why the mask must stay in place." Days turned into weeks. Lena found herself living a life she had never imagined. Every morning she woke before dawn to fetch water from the well. She learned to cook simple meals over an open fire. She washed clothes by hand in the river. Her soft hands developed calluses. Her smooth skin was marked by the sun. It was humiliating. Every task reminded her of how far she had fallen. The daughter of a wealthy merchant, reduced to living like a common village woman. She watched other women from her former social circle pass by in fine clothes, and she had to look away, ashamed. One afternoon, while struggling to carry a heavy pot of water on her head, she stumbled. The pot fell, water spilling everywhere. She collapsed on the ground and began to cry. Not quiet tears. Deep, heaving sobs that came from a broken place inside her. She cried for her lost status. For her ruined dreams. For the life she thought she would have. For the pride that had been stripped away piece by piece. Cato found her there, sitting in the mud, surrounded by spilled water. He did not speak. He simply sat down beside her and waited. After a long time, when her tears finally stopped, he spoke. "I know this is hard," he said softly. "You were not raised for this life. Neither was I. But sometimes God breaks us down to build us up again. Sometimes we must lose everything to discover what truly matters." Lena looked at him through swollen eyes. "And what truly matters?" "Character," he said. "Integrity. The kind of person you are when no one is watching and nothing is going your way. That is what matters." One morning, while Lena was at the market buying vegetables with the little money Cato had given her, an old woman approached. She was the village midwife, a woman named Mama Zuri. Everyone knew her. Some feared her. Some respected her. Some said she could see things others could not. "Child," Mama Zuri said, placing a wrinkled hand on Lena's arm. "Let me look at you." Lena stood still as the old woman's eyes, cloudy with age, studied her face. Mama Zuri smiled slowly. "You are changing," she said. "Changing?" Lena asked, confused. "Inside. Where it matters. When you first came here, I saw only pride and anger. Now I see something else. Something softer. Something stronger." Lena did not know what to say. The old woman continued, "The path you walk is not the one you chose. But it is the one you need. Every step is leading you somewhere. Every hardship is shaping you." "Leading me where?" Lena asked. Mama Zuri's smile grew wider. "To your crown, my dear. To your crown." "Crown? I do not understand. I'm nobody now. Just a laborer's wife." The old woman chuckled. "Appearances deceive. Titles mislead. But destiny does not lie." She patted Lena's cheek gently. "Your crown is near, child. Closer than you think. But first you must become worthy to wear it. And you are almost there." Before Lena could ask what she meant, Mama Zuri walked away humming an old tune. Lena stood in the market, holding her vegetables, her mind spinning with the strange prophecy. What crown? What destiny? Nothing made sense anymore. Meanwhile, in Lena's father's house, unease was growing. Her mother paced the floor while her father sat with his head in his hands. "Something is wrong," her mother said. "I can feel it." "What do you mean?" her father asked tiredly. "Lena. She was supposed to be miserable. She was supposed to come running back to us begging for help. But it has been 2 months and we have heard nothing. No complaints. No tears. Nothing." Her father shrugged. "Maybe she is too ashamed to come back." "No," her mother said, her eyes narrowing. "I know our daughter. Pride runs deep in her veins. If she were truly suffering, she would make sure we knew. She would make us feel guilty. But her silence, it means something else." Her brother, Tund, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped into the room. "I saw her at the market yesterday," he said. "She looked different. Thinner, yes. But there was something in her eyes. Not defeat. Something else. Almost like contentment." "Contentment." Her mother's voice rose. "How can she be content? She married a poor laborer. She lives in a mud hut." Tund shrugged. "I am just telling you what I saw." After he left, Lena's mother turned to her husband. "We need to watch her closely. If she is hiding something, we need to know. We gave her to Baco's laborer to pay our debt. But if there is more to this story, if somehow we made a mistake." Her voice trailed off, but her meaning was clear. Greed flickered in her father's eyes. "You think there might be an advantage we missed?" "I think we should find out," she replied. And with those words, a plan began to form. Despite everything, something unexpected was happening. Lena and Cato were growing closer. Not through grand gestures or romantic words, but through shared hardship and quiet moments. In the evenings after work, they would sit outside the hut and talk. Cato taught her about the stars. He told her stories from his time at court, about books he had read, philosophies he had learned. Lena, in turn, shared stories from her childhood, before pride had hardened her heart. She began to see him not as her misfortune, but as a man of depth and intelligence. A man who had lost everything yet carried himself with dignity. A man who could have been bitter but chose to be kind. One day at the market, a wealthy merchant's son began mocking Cato publicly. "Look at the poor laborer," he sneered, "carrying sacks like a donkey. Some men are born to serve." Before Cato could respond, Lena stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "And some men are born to judge others without knowing their worth. My husband works honestly. He provides for his family. He treats people with respect. That makes him richer than men who have money but no character." The market fell silent. People stared. The merchant's son's face turned red with embarrassment. He stormed off without another word. Cato looked at Lena with surprise and something else. Gratitude. Respect. Perhaps even the beginning of love. That night, as they lay on their separate mats, Cato spoke into the darkness. Thank you for defending me today. You are my husband, Lena replied simply. That is what wives do. And for the first time since their forced marriage, both of them smiled in the darkness, feeling something shift between them. Something real and genuine was growing where only duty had existed before. 3 months after the wedding, a messenger arrived in the village. He wore the king's colors and carried an official scroll. He rode through the streets calling out, "All able-bodied men must report to the district court for the annual census and tax assessment. By order of the king." The village erupted in worried murmurs. The census was mandatory. Every man had to appear, state his name, his occupation, his family status. Records would be taken. Officials would be present. Cato's face went pale when he heard the news. That evening he sat in the hut with his head in his hands. "I cannot go," he said. "If I appear before court officials, someone might recognize me. Duma has spies everywhere. This could be the end." Lena knelt beside him. "Then do not go. I'd say you are sick. They will come looking for me. Failure to appear at the census is a crime. They will arrest me and drag me there anyway." He looked at her with desperate eyes. "There is no way out." They sat in silence for a long time. Then Lena spoke, her voice steady. "Then maybe it is time to stop hiding." Cato looked at her sharply. "What? You have been running for 3 years. Living in fear. Watching over your shoulder. Is this how you want to live forever?" She took his hand. "Maybe this is the moment. Maybe this is when truth finally comes to light." "They will kill me," Cato whispered. "Maybe," Lena said. "Or maybe God has been preparing you for this moment all along. Maybe your time in hiding was not about running away, but about becoming strong enough to face what is coming." Cato stared at her, seeing strength in her he had not noticed before. The proud, angry girl he had married was gone. In her place sat a woman of courage and wisdom. "You would stand with me?" he asked. "Even knowing the danger?" "I am your wife," Lena said firmly. "Where you go I go. Whatever happens we face it together." The night before the census, Cato could not sleep. He sat outside under the stars, wrestling with his decision. Lena found him there and sat beside him in silence. "I am afraid," he admitted finally. "So am I," Lena said. "But fear is not always a sign to run. Sometimes it is a sign that what we are about to do matters." Cato looked at her. "When did you become so wise?" She smiled sadly. "When I lost everything and learned that who I am is more important than what I have." They sat together until dawn. And as the sun rose, Cato made his decision. He would go to the census, but he would go prepared. He went into the hut and opened the old chest. He took out the royal cloth, the ring, and one more item he had kept hidden. A sealed letter. Written by his friend Juma before Cato fled. A letter that contained testimony about Duma's corruption, signed and witnessed. "I have carried this for 3 years, Cato said, showing it to Lena. "Waiting for the right moment. Juma told me to keep it safe, that one day it might save my life." "Is today that day?" Lena asked. "I do not know," Cato replied honestly. "But I am tired of running. Tired of hiding. Tired of letting evil win because I am too afraid to fight. If I die today, at least I will die with my name spoken aloud. As myself. Not as a shadow." He looked at Lena with intensity. "But you do not have to come. This is my battle. You can stay here, stay safe." Lena stood and straightened her simple dress. "I told you last night. Where you go I go. We face this together." Cato's eyes filled with tears. He pulled her close and held her. And in that moment, their forced marriage became a true union. Not because of law or obligation but because of choice and love. They walked to the district court together. Lena's heart pounded with every step. The courtyard was filled with men from surrounding villages, all waiting to be registered. Officials sat at long tables recording names and occupations. Cato and Lena joined the long line. As they waited, Cato's hand slipped into his pocket and touched the ring. The royal seal. His proof of identity. Finally they reached the front of the line. A board official looked up. "Name?" Cato took a deep breath. "Cato Mensa. Son of Governor Mensa. Former advisor to the king." The official's pen stopped mid-stroke. His head snapped up. "What did you say?" "I said my name is Cato Mensa. I am the man they have been searching for. The one falsely accused of treason 3 years ago." The courtyard went silent. Everyone turned to stare. Guards immediately surrounded them, hands on their weapons. "You claim to be Cato Mensa?" another official said, standing up. "The traitor? I claim to be Cato Mensa, the innocent man who was framed by Duma the treasurer." Cato pulled out the ring and held it up. "This is the seal of my father, given to me on my 18th birthday. It bears his mark and mine. Examine it. You will see it is genuine." The official took the ring, studying it closely. His eyes widened. This is real. Where did you get this?" "It was mine. It has always been mine. Because I am who I say I am." Within minutes, senior officials were summoned. The courtyard erupted in chaos. And as guards surrounded Cato, one of them looked at the ring and suddenly dropped to his knees. "My lord," the guard whispered. "It is really you." Other guards looked confused. But the kneeling guard continued, "I served under your father. I was there the night you disappeared. We thought you were dead." News spread like wildfire. Within hours, the entire district knew. Cato Mensa, the lost nobleman, the falsely accused traitor, had returned, alive, and claiming his innocence. Messengers were dispatched to the capital. Senior officials arrived to question Cato. He told his story calmly, presenting the sealed letter from Juma as evidence. The letter detailed Duma's crimes with dates, amounts, and witnesses. The officials read it with growing alarm. One of them, an elderly judge named Kamau, looked at Cato with respect. "This is explosive information. If what this letter claims is true, Duma has stolen hundreds of thousands from the royal treasury." "It is true," Cato said firmly. "I discovered it 3 years ago. That is why he framed me. He needed me gone before I could expose him." Judge Kamau nodded slowly. "This matter must go before the king himself. You will be escorted to the capital. Under protection, not as a prisoner." For the first time in 3 years, Cato stood straight. He removed the laborer's posture. He lifted his head. And everyone could see the change. This was not a poor worker. This was a man of authority, of education, of nobility. As they prepared to leave for the capital, Lena stood beside him. Officials looked at her with confusion. "Who is this woman?" "My wife," Cato said, taking her hand. "She stood by me when I had nothing. She defended me when I could not defend myself. She is coming with me." Judge Kamau smiled. "Then she will be treated with the honor due to the wife of a nobleman." And for Lena, the transformation was dizzying. Just hours ago, she was a laborer's wife in a mud hut. Now she was being addressed as "my lady" and offered a place in the official carriages. 3 days later, they arrived at the capital. Cato had not seen the great city in 3 years. The palace loomed before them, familiar yet foreign. Memories flooded back. Some beautiful, some painful. They were brought before the king's court. The great hall was packed. Nobles, officials, advisors, and in the front row, looking confident and smug, sat Duma the treasurer. When he saw Cato, his face went white. "Impossible," he breathed. "You're dead." "No," Cato said calmly. "I am very much alive. And I have come to tell the truth." The king, an aging man with tired eyes, looked down from his throne. "Cato Mensa, 3 years ago you were accused of treason and theft. The evidence against you was overwhelming. Now you return claiming innocence. Why should we believe you?" Cato stepped forward. "Because I can prove everything, your majesty. I have testimony from Juma, your loyal guard, detailing Duma's crimes. I have dates, amounts, and witnesses. And I ask only for one thing: audit the royal treasury. Check the records. You will find discrepancies that match exactly what I have documented." Duma jumped to his feet. "This is nonsense. He is a convicted traitor trying to save himself with lies." But Judge Kamau stood as well. "Then you will have no objection to an audit, Treasurer Duma? If your records are clean, you have nothing to fear." Duma's confident smile faltered. "Of course not. But this is a waste of time." "Then it is settled," the king said. "The treasury will be audited immediately. Guards, secure all records. No one enters or leaves the treasury until the investigation is complete." Duma's face crumbled. He tried to speak, to object, but the king raised his hand for silence. And in that moment, everyone in the hall knew. The truth was about to come crashing down. The audit took 3 days. Teams of accountants worked day and night, checking records, comparing documents, following paper trails. What they found shocked everyone. Duma had stolen over 500,000 gold pieces over the course of 5 years. He had created fake suppliers, inflated prices, and pocketed the difference. He had bribed officials, falsified documents, and eliminated anyone who got too close to discovering the truth. When the findings were presented to the king, the hall erupted. Duma tried to flee but was caught by guards. He fell to his knees, begging for mercy. "Your Majesty, please. I can explain. I was going to return the money. I was just borrowing." "Silence," the king roared, his face red with rage. "You have betrayed the trust of this kingdom. You have stolen from your own people. And you destroyed an innocent man's life to cover your crimes." The king stood. Cato Mensa stepped forward. Cato approached the throne and knelt. "You were wrongly accused. Your name will be cleared. Your title will be restored. Your father's lands and properties will be returned to you. And Duma?" The king turned cold eyes to the treasurer. "You will be stripped of all titles, all property, all status. You will serve 20 years of hard labor. The same fate you tried to force upon an innocent man." Guards dragged Duma away, his screams echoing through the hall. The nobles who had supported him, who had profited from his schemes, suddenly found themselves under investigation. One by one they were exposed and punished. The proud had fallen. The corrupt had been revealed. And justice, though delayed, had finally arrived. The hall fell silent, the weight of truth settling over everyone like dust after a storm. After the trial, after the sentencing, after the chaos had settled, the king summoned Cato privately. Lena was permitted to attend. "Cato," the king said, his voice weary, "I owe you an apology. I believed lies. I condemned an innocent man. I failed you." "You were deceived, Your Majesty," Cato said gently. Duma was clever. His lies were well constructed. The king shook his head. "That is no excuse. A good king should see through deception." "I did not." He paused. "Your father was one of my most trusted advisors. Before he died, he told me you would be a great leader. I would like to honor his memory by offering you a position. I want you to become my new treasurer, to rebuild what Duma destroyed." Cato looked surprised. It was everything he had lost. Status, power, wealth, influence. Everything he had dreamed of reclaiming. He opened his mouth to accept. Then he felt Lena's hand squeeze his. He looked at her. She was not smiling. She was watching him carefully, waiting to see what he would choose. And in that moment, Cato understood the real test. The trial was over. Justice had been served. But now came the question, had he learned anything from his 3 years as a laborer? Or would he simply return to his old life, unchanged? "Your Majesty," Cato said slowly, "I am honored. But before I accept, I must ask, would you accept me as treasurer if I were still a laborer? If I had no title, no wealth, no status? Would my wisdom and integrity be enough?" The king looked confused. "But you are not a laborer. You are nobility. And yet, for 3 years I was a laborer. And in those 3 years I learned more about life, about people, about what truly matters than I learned in all my years at court." Cato stood tall. "I will serve you, Your Majesty. But not because of my title. Because of my character. And I ask that you judge all people the same way." The king stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly he began to smile. The coronation ceremony was held a week later. Cato was officially restored to his position, his lands returned, his name cleared. But something unexpected happened during the ceremony. As Cato knelt before the king to receive his seal of office, Lena was called forward as well. The crowd murmured in confusion. Why was the wife being honored? The king stood and addressed the assembly. This woman, Lena, married Cato Mensa when he was thought to be nothing more than a poor laborer. She endured mockery and hardship. She could have abandoned him when a wealthy suitor offered her escape. But she remained faithful. She stood by him when he had no title, no wealth, no status to offer. The king turned to Lena. "In our kingdom, we honor those who display exceptional character. You, Lena, have shown loyalty, courage, and integrity. Therefore, I am granting you the title of Lady of the Realm, with lands and income of your own, independent of your husband. Because your worth is not defined by whom you married, but by who you are." The crowd erupted in applause. Tears streamed down Lena's face. The king placed a silver circlet on her head. Her crown. The crown Mama Zuri had prophesied. But then Lena did something that shocked everyone. She removed the circlet, held it in her hands for a moment, and then set it aside. "Your Majesty," she said, her voice clear, "I am deeply honored. But I do not need a crown to know my worth. I learned my value in a mud hut, washing clothes in the river, working in the fields. The crown is beautiful, but it is not what makes me worthy. I am worthy because of what I became when everything else was stripped away." The king smiled. "Then you understand the lesson. Wear the crown anyway. Not as a symbol of your worth, but as a reminder to others that true nobility comes from within. Lena bowed and accepted the circlet again. As she stood, she looked out at the crowd and saw her family. Her parents stood at the back, their faces full of shame and regret. She met their eyes, and in that moment she had to make a choice. The celebrations continued for days. The kingdom rejoiced at the exposure of corruption and the return of an honest man to power. But on the third day, Cato stood before the people to address them. "My friends," he began, his voice carrying across the courtyard, "I want to tell you something important. For 3 years I lived as a laborer. I wore torn clothes, ate simple food, and worked with my hands until they bled. And in those 3 years, I learned the greatest lesson of my life." The crowd listened silently. "I learned that a man's worth is not measured by his title or his wealth. It is measured by how he treats others when he has nothing to gain. It is measured by his integrity when no one is watching. It is measured by his kindness when the world is cruel." He gestured to the nobles around him. "Many of you treated me with contempt when you thought I was poor. You mocked me. You ignored me. You looked down on me. But when you learned who I really was, suddenly I became valuable to you. That is not respect. That is hypocrisy." Some nobles looked down, ashamed. Others shifted uncomfortably. "From this day forward," Cato continued, "I will judge every person by their character, not their status. And I ask all of you to do the same. Because the laborer you dismissed today might be the nobleman of tomorrow. And more importantly, every person, rich or poor, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect." The crowd erupted in cheers. And in that moment something shifted in the kingdom. A new way of thinking had been planted. After the speech, Lena's family approached her privately. Her mother's eyes were red from crying. Her father could barely look at her. "Lena," her mother began, her voice trembling, "we are so sorry. We forced you into that marriage to save ourselves. We thought only of our debt, our shame, our problems. We never thought about what it would do to you." Her father added quietly, "When we learned the truth about Cato, we felt even worse. We realized we had given you away like you meant nothing to us. We were wrong. Terribly wrong." Lena stood before them, her face calm but her heart in turmoil. She had every right to be angry. Every right to turn her back on them just as they had turned their backs on her. Every right to make them feel the pain they had caused her. The crowd gathered, watching to see what she would do. Some whispered that she should reject them. Others said they deserved her fury. But Lena thought about what she had learned in that mud hut. About forgiveness. About mercy. About being the bigger person even when you have the right to be small. "I forgive you," she said simply. Her mother gasped. Her father's knees weakened. The crowd murmured in surprise. "But," Lena continued, her voice firm, "forgiveness does not mean forgetting. You hurt me deeply. And that hurt will take time to heal. I will not pretend everything is fine. But I choose not to carry hatred in my heart. That would only poison me." Her mother fell to her knees, weeping. Her father bowed his head. And the crowd watched as mercy triumphed over revenge. Months passed. Cato and Lena settled into their new life. But they did something unusual. Instead of moving into a grand palace, they built a modest home on the edge of the capital. Large enough for comfort but simple enough to remember where they came from. One morning, Lena woke to find Mama Zuri sitting in her kitchen, humming that same old tune. "Mama?" Lena exclaimed. "How did you get in?" The door was locked. The old woman smiled. "Doors are not barriers to those who walk between worlds." Lena sat down slowly, her heart beating fast. "What do you mean?" Mama Zuri poured tea with steady hands. "I am not who you think I am, child. I am not simply an old midwife. I am a guardian. A guide. I appear in the lives of those whose destinies need direction." "You are a spirit?" Lena whispered. "I am many things. I am the voice of wisdom when wisdom is needed. I am the push when someone needs to move forward. I am the reminder that destiny is not about what happens to you, but what you become through what happens to you." Mama Zuri stood. "My work with you is done. You found your crown. Not the one made of silver but the one made of character. You learned that true nobility is earned through suffering, sacrifice, and choice." "Will I see you again?" Lena asked, tears forming. "Perhaps. Perhaps not. But know this, I am always watching. Always guiding. Always hoping that people will choose to become who they were meant to be." Mama Zuri walked to the door. She turned back once, smiled, and then stepped out. When Lena rushed to follow, the old woman had vanished completely. No footprints. No trace. Just empty air and the lingering scent of herbs. And so, my children, we come to the end of this story. But before you go back to your lives, Sit with me here by this fire and think deeply about what you have heard. Lena was forced to marry a poor laborer. She was humiliated. She lost everything she valued. Her pride was shattered. Her dreams were destroyed. But through that suffering she discovered who she truly was. She found strength she did not know she had. She developed character that could not be bought or inherited. Cato lived as a laborer not because he had to, but because he needed to learn. He needed to understand what it meant to be treated as nothing, so that when he had power again he would use it with wisdom and compassion. Both of them learned the same lesson: true worth hides in humility. A crown means nothing if the person wearing it has no character. Wealth means nothing if it comes with a cold heart. Status means nothing if it makes you look down on others. The people who mocked Lena learned that the woman they dismissed was worth more than all of them combined. The family who gave her away learned that love cannot be measured in gold. The nobles who judged by appearance learned that they were the truly poor ones. So I ask you now, as you warm yourselves by this fire, how many crowns have you mistaken for rags because pride blinded you? How many times have you judged someone by their clothes, their job, their house, their accent, and missed the royalty standing right in front of you? The next time you see someone struggling, someone poor, someone society has dismissed, look closer. Look with your heart, not your eyes. Because you never know when you are standing before a king or queen in disguise. And remember, your true crown is not given to you. It is built by you. Through your choices. Through your character. Through who you become when the world strips everything else away. Now go. Live wisely. Judge kindly. And may you always recognize the royalty hidden in humble clothing. The end.